And I took in the title the word empathy. So what is empathy? And I want to define it because it's not that clear in the world, and it's also not clear for user researchers what empathy means. And I have a lot of difficulties with this word. Empathy means to recognize, understand, and feel the other. Let's make the empathy part of it. So you look at two workspaces, and I think I trigger some stereotypes here. So on the left, you would probably think this is a designer workplace, and on the right, it's a developer workplace. This is kind of true, kind of not so true, possibly. But what you can really assume is that designers and developers, just to be a little bit more general, have a self-interest. And this self-interest not only lays in the person itself, but also is based on the organization they come from, for example. So when you compose a team and you have designers on the team and a developer and developers on the team, they might come from different organizational units, which have different philosophies on performing tasks, for example. This is one thing of the self-interest. The other thing on the self-interest is the professional self-image. And there are some aspects we have in common. So having the eye on details, but in a different way. So developers look on the details in their code and the beauty of their code, and we look on details on design and the beauty of the design, for example. And when I look on my qualitative data, I also have an eye for my details. So when the data is very beautiful, I have a complex image in my head what beautiful data is. But this is an image in my mind that is not shared by a developer. My husband is a developer, and we studied together computer science, and we then developed in complete different areas, and we have very interesting talks about our mental models about project work and project tasks. So the very start of working together is to accept that there is a self-interest, and it's okay. So this is the first step. And the second is, okay, there is a self-interest. So let's make it transparent so that the other can understand why I act differently on tasks or opinions than he or she does. This is the very first step. And as I saw on the list for today, that most of you are from the UX field and not from the Agile field, I need to show you this wonderful image. This is the safe master image. Zach wants to cut it. Okay, this is a wonderful image about a framework. And the framework itself is not evil. It has some goals and it wants to achieve some good things for businesses, good things for people, and everything is neutral as long as it is on paper or within your computer. The evil starts with how you conduct it. And what I see when I look on this image, just to tell you what is very important you have to know about this image is you have three layers. The essential layer, perhaps you see my mouse, you see it. The essential layer, where the teams in Scrum organizations contribute to a larger solution that is on top. And the third and most up level is the portfolio level, where also the strategic matters come into. So when you look at that, you have to assume, okay, three layers. Perhaps they have different responsibilities? Yes, they do. So the real music plays at the bottom. Up, obviously, there the teams are working and submitting their increments to a program. So that program increments. What you also can see here, the heart is the agile teams. So you have your product owner, scrum master, and the developers. So, and what you also can see is this double diamond design thinking thing and the customer centricity icon. And also attached to the huge image is this one here, the lean UX. So everything is explained. It works. We are ready to start. No, we are not. And this is the moment where me as a user researcher wants to research what happens in practice in the field. And I ask some colleagues, because in Switzerland, I'm also a little active in the UX community, and I have a lot of exchange with colleagues, and I ask them, hey, what happens in safe or agile procedures? And here I want to give you 5 examples from my talks to colleagues. So René, a UX researcher, told me they put us in a shared services organization, but we need the context knowledge of the product for data interpretation. So we talk a lot with the developers, which is not very well received. We are supposed to do our research somewhere separate from the teams and not hinder the teams. This is absolutely poison for your interpretation and analysis when you don't know the context of your product, where it comes from and where it goes. Absolutely poison. Then Natalie on the right, a UX designer, told me it was not a safe organization, but an agile, 2 agile teams worked on a product. When my boss talks about lean UX, he means I should work faster by doing the same. This is not possible. You cannot do a complete pixel perfect design within agile context. It's not possible. And there we have the problem with the nickel and the dime. So you cannot have the design completely explained in every detail and do it on agile. It's impossible. So next, Christine, user researcher, large organization, a lot of arts, and she is one of 6 user researchers in the whole organization. We are always late. Teams come late to the idea or realize only when they themselves disagree that they need research. Then the results come and they are surprised that they have to rethink or rebuild something. It's amazing. So you cannot be too late for research. It's impossible to be too late. Perhaps it's not the moment that you can change everything to the next sprint, but it's never too late. It doesn't make sense for me. Okay. Then Claudia, UX designer, fantastic. This is really fantastic. She said, for each and every bullshit, this picture has an icon. Inexperience cling to every detail and we are stuck in a corset. And this is what the framework didn't want to, and what also Scrum, without the safe framework, Scrum itself, never wanted you to be inflexible and have this fixed time frames, have this fixed method set. That was not intended from the frameworks. But it's done like that. And that's an issue. And all the flexibility that we have learned on our career path to be faster with smaller chunks and so on is neglected when you stick to a plan. And that's the idea of agility, not to stick to a plan, but to react on the things that are working outside. And at the final end, we have Michael, a user researcher. He came from a market research agency into an insurance company and joined there the customer experience team. And he said an interesting thing. We need transcripts for deep qualitative analysis. Nobody produces transcripts within teams. Going lean here means not to know the bottom of the iceberg of user experience. And we made an experiment together, Michael and me, and we took the results that the team or the insights the team produced, and then we took the original data and analyzed the data they really had, and we had some very, very serious differences in insights. And this is something you won't see when you see lean as taking a shortcut without knowing what this means. So taking a shorter way means you need to know what you do. And when you only have laypersons on it, you don't know what you do, and you take a shortcut that is not allowed. That's it. So, and this is something that creates, in my mind, the attitude of that everybody can do research and everybody can do design. This is not helpful in each and every case. So I have to come with Kurt Tucholsky, who said the opposite of good is not evil, but well-intentioned. And this is the problem with the frameworks. They have a very good intention, but we have to look very carefully how we conduct them. And we, as UX designers and UX researchers, we have to consult teams to do it right and to treat it right. And by the way, a little footnote, I'm not quite sure if lean UX is the right way. That's my opinion. It's only mine. But implementing UX is not adding UX. This is what the image also triggers in when I look at it on the safe image. You have this lean UX description by the right end of the image. It's not adding UX, but all of you know it. We have several layers of UX that we have to look at. But there are implementation strategies for the team process already in place. And I want to share 3 of them with you because I experienced all the 3, and they can be good or not that good in depending on the team. And this is also the first strategy is do nothing different. So you have the agile process and you follow the process, and you are agnostic regarding human-centered design or the human-centered design process. It can work out. It can be a good thing when the team is really a consistent team in meaning and have a clear shared goal. I worked on such a team for 3 years. We were all at the same place. We were a business analyst, UX researcher, so me, and 5 developers. The product owner was in the same room, the Scrum Master was in the same room, and we were all in that room together. And we wanted to make the application the best under the sun. And that was our shared goal. And we moved on with this. And we had a good communication within this team. It can work out. It was great 3 years. The Sprint Zero, I think you also know this. This is a strategy that you ramp up a project. So you do all the fundamental UX work beforehand. So you lay out the navigation, You research which personas you would address with a product. You sharpen the product vision, and you do all the fundamental stuff. By the way, Sprint Zero is also very interesting for doing the IT baseline stuff. So looking at the IT architecture, what to do to implement the product in the upcoming sprints. So Sprint Zero is something you can do because there's also a fit with the IT demands. What I observe when you have this Sprint Zero is that people think, okay, we have now all the UX stuff and it's done. and you leave and you are staffed anywhere else. But developers still need some detailed design on specific things. Even then, when a style guide is there and pattern library and so on, even then they need at certain circumstances come together, they need detailed design. And still, also you have done research, you still have assumptions, and you make assumptions from sprint to sprint, and you will need to test them. So you will also need research work. And the third one, as a common strategy, I observe is the dual track agile. So you have designers and researchers on board, they are part of the team. But what I observe is, yes, they are staffed to the team, but they are not within reviews, they are not in retrospectives, they are not part of the dailies, and they work on their things. And business analyst or one of the developers who's more at the front end then brings in the requirements into Jira and so on from the designs. So they are completely away from the team, although they are staffed on a team. I can't get such things, but it happens. And what is also interesting, since dual track agile is in most cases successful, I think, you guess beforehand that the UX capacity you need will decrease. That's wrong. It will increase because your product grows, and that's a thing that companies still have to learn. I think they have to still observe their products, and in some products they won't observe it because it takes not so long until the product is over or end of life. But I worked on project on products for 3 years, for 4 years, for 5 years, very long developments with continuous releasing and so on. Your product increases very much, and then you have to do completely different research, and you have to reinvent the product, and then you have to rebuild it in a certain way. And this is quite interesting process, and then you see it very clear that from year to year you need more UX capacity. So just to show it to you, this is the dual track origin, and it's a paper from 2007, and here you see the problem with the distance between developer track and interaction designer track. So keeping the distance within the team is not that good. You should be a consistent team that talks about everything in the same place. But you see a difficulty here you have to be aware of. The developers are on their increment. They work on their stories. They are in now. They work now. But on the interaction designer track, you see you are working for the past, for now, and for the future. So your mind, your brain is bridging all the 3 times. So you look back, is the already coded one good for the user? You help the developers for now to implement their stories and make the visual design, for example. And you look into the future to prepare the upcoming cycles. So this is exhausting. And in my mind, it makes no sense to have this Excel files where UX designers are for 30% in this project, 40% in this project, and 10% in this project. This is, whoa, amazing. but some of you managed this. It's really cool. So it's not enough to explain how the team process should happen. It's not enough, and I want to explain you why perhaps you can use it in your organization to explain yourself. So making your needs in an agile product development visible to the other. So why it's not enough? Because Agile, for example, talks about increments, and we need iterations. So an increment says the product grows. An iteration says the product changes. And this is something that Agile procedures per se don't support. So we have to divide the problems into chunks and iterate on smaller things on it. But explain to the Agile people why we do need iterations, why we can't live only with increments. And this is due to the nature of user experience itself. So make it short. User experience is holistic, non-deterministic, and asymptotically improved. That's it. It explains everything. So, but make the short story long. This is my profession, by the way. Holistic. This is the Swiss Birchermüsli. It's fantastic. But you would never taste all the ingredients that are in there. It's holistic. My experience of Birchermüsli is a holistic one, and I cannot tell you what's in there. This is true with each and every user experience. Non-deterministic means you give the same problem to 2 designers and they would solve it differently, and the quality of the user experience can be the same. That's it. Design is as such, and it's not a problem, but it is like that. What does it mean? When you change your UX specialist on a project, you will get a slightly different user experience. It's normal. So always when managers do this, you don't support this team, go there, go there, go there, they harm user experience, because consistency is then a little poisoned. Asymptotically improved. This is what I showed with the rectangle and the rounded rectangle. So you have to learn a lot at the first time. And the graphic is how I try to learn. So I make this Grumble template, and everybody is allowed to say this is ugly and this is wrong, and there is something missing and something like that. Then I learn. And then a wireframe perhaps is possible so that we can introduce it to users. And we make a test, we learn again, And then the exhausting visual design discussions start. This, by the way, is definitely my personal problem, because when wireframes are fully explained, and I know this is where the user experience has to go, these are the functions we need, these are the rankings and so on. When I know this everything, the visual design is no longer interesting for me, but that's my problem because I'm not in visual design. So it's colored by opinion. So then again, you heard me. I cannot make it clear in my mind why we have this UX designer 30% in this team, 40% in this team, 10% in this team, but it's the ratio from designer to developer that we have in companies. I took the numbers on the left with a white background here from this blog article. It looks quite good. So in 2017, 1 to 9, 1 to 8, so 1 designer to 8 developers, looks quite good. But what I experience when I working for my clients, banks, software developer companies, it's a little different. And I have 3 examples for you. On the right side here from my clients. The first one is a software provider of a product suite. They have 1 product suite. They had 1 designer who makes all the research and design stuff. The second example is a financial service provider with more than 5,000 employees in total, has 800 developers, 20 designers, and 6 researchers. It's almost the same ratio. So yeah, it's the same ratio, 1 to 40. And the service provider of individual software that I'm working with has this ratio also: no researcher, 2 designers who also do the research stuff, and 70 developers. This is the reality, and this is only true for the big techs who lead the movement. The reality is different, and what this means is that we need unicorns, but unicorns are are not that often seen, I think. So companies start to hire more UX designers and UX specialists in general, but they are not very experienced in that, and they don't know what a senior can cost or should cost, and they decide slightly interesting, I think. And we have a situation that we have juniors and we have a lot of designers who are not UX designers. So this is the reality we have in that companies. And when you have such staff, you need standard procedures. And that also explains why frameworks are taken like a corset. So another problem that occurs because of that is that you can't be lean with unexperienced or inexperienced staff. A sentence a colleague of me, Angie Born, said to me is, the leaner you go, the more you need to know. And this is something that holds true, because when you want to take a shorter way, you want to skip steps, you have to know what you do and what you harm. So I would really prefer to take the research design, but delegate research execution. When you're so few UX designers and UX researchers, on product teams, you have to do it. So pick your fights, but pick your fights wise. And by the way, um, this is not a diva experience. So I don't want to fight against teams. Never. I want to fight against bullshit. Yes. And I wrote an article about that. And when you're interested in there, not only design divas, but also and how you can recognize them. The article is in German, but I tried it to translate it with DeepL, and it's a quite good translation. So I recommend you to read this article. So as a result, what we do, dear stakeholders and team, we need some visibility. And this visibility, we can choose it. For example, the retrospective. What I really don't like, and I see it very often, that UX designers, UX researchers on teams don't say anything in retrospectives. That will not help. You will have to say something, otherwise nobody can hear you. So take the ears of the people and tell what is wrong with the process and what you would expect others to do, and explain yourself. And what we also do need is transparency of the work we do. So SAFe, for example, has the concept of enabler stories. So you can have your enabler stories or research stories within the backlog, so that the team is aware of your work, so that you contribute to the product. Do it. Try it out. It's fantastic. I swear. What I also tried, I did summarize here, is some things from the liberating structures. This is here on the left. For example, the user experience fishbowl. I introduced a meeting once in a sprint where I'm sitting on the hot chair and everybody can ask me questions. In most cases, we could skip this meeting because I invited the developers to the user testings and have them in the observer room. That was really good for them to see the users in real action. What we also did quite successful is Troika Consulting. We had a UX designer and a business analyst and a developer responsible for a feature. And they put the feature completely from the idea to the definition of ready to the definition of done. So all the three were responsible. The third one I tried was also very successful, train people in doing simple ethnography. So when you are working on a product, on a digital product that is used within the company, so it faces to employees, it's very easy. So you can train also the developers how to make an observation. And we prepared the protocols, how they have to protocol observations and how they can make clear what observation is objective and what comes from their mind and what is their idea, but not a real observation. That was also quite successful. So we could delegate these tasks. What I really tried to give you on your way, bring the enabler stories into the backlog as well as in the product backlog. So you learn also to plan your tasks in the product development and put them into the sprint backlog. And what we also did, it was really cool. we put a point into the definition of ready, that each and every story has to be part of a user evaluation. And we did not define which evaluation. There are very lightweight evaluation forms that you can use. And when a user story was part of a bigger user testing, this criteria was done. So this was okay. So we worked with this quite successful. But what you also do need in a larger agile organization is that UX governance is on portfolio level and not on team levels, because you can get inconsistent products, and yeah, it's not that interesting for users when they meet one more product, not only one, but the second and the third product also, and they have a completely different experience on these three products. Okay, so delegate the easy parts of UX work. What I said to you, you can do it with respect to the research process. You see here, the white ones are the easy ones. You can train people to do it right in a very short amount of time, but you should stay with the very first part of the research process. This is really difficult to learn, and also when you have 5 or 6 years of experience, you still won't be that good as a very experienced researcher in that first section of the research process. And what you definitely should not delegate is the interpretation work. So where do the insights come? This is your work. You have to do it yourself. But what you again can give to the team or have it together with the team is the report. So you can have workshops on that. So present some details of the research, show to the team where they find more insights, and have a little game with them. So becoming a millionaire is a good game for that, for example. So you don't have to do it on your own. You can also give this to a layperson organizing this workshop and having a standardized agenda or something like that. In UX design, you can also do something like that. So delegate work to the team, and it will also make the teamwork more visible. We therefore use the use flow that we produce at the very first time in a project or for a product, where we show what is in scope for our wireframe. So it can be a use case with a name, and it has several steps and some sub steps, and you put in most cases some notes on it, okay? But you also have then this out of scope use cases, and this is a quite a good example. Login and register. This is quite common. So when you have a crispy front-end developer on your team, he would really love to do this prototype or this sketch on a piece of paper, how this login process can be performed. They don't need there a lot of UX work. You can then be the reviewer of it, and that's it. So developers, they have the time to do it in most cases, because you are not fast enough with the rest of the process. And they would perform quite good. When they are experienced in front-end development, they would be successful in that. So trust the team. They also can do design work, and they can do research work. in the frame you give. And on this masterpiece of image, of safe image, I put also some ideas. It's not complete, just some ideas what you can do when you're within the teams. Look for these enabler stories and fill them with conceptual and visual design work. Look that when you are part of a team that is organized within an agile release train, that you share a definition of ready and a definition of done for the things you do in your teams. You should know and consult your organization that you have also enabler epics that might be user research or that can be user research. And UX strategy, the rules, the basics of the user experience your company aims for should be aligned with the strategic themes and portfolio vision. And you should have a senior user experience architecture role on the portfolio level as well, because you can't address the product strategy within the development team, because when the development team develops, the strategy must be there, must be around. Okay, and also when you're not in scaled agile, but in Scrum, for example, you are within a smaller company where you have 2 or 3 teams or just one team developing on a product, you are responsible for the refinement, and you should design the refinement. In most teams, it's a meeting, but it must not be a meeting. The framework doesn't describe refinement as a meeting. It's an ongoing process, and the human-centered design process perfectly fits into refinement, into the refinement idea. And what I really, really recommend is be part of all the ceremonies. So be in the reviews, be there in the dailies, be part in the sprint planning, and take your time in the retrospective, please. So that's from me. I really love now to answer questions and discuss with you. So that was the bang. And connect with me on LinkedIn.